All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Bro History. It's Henry Zamota and Danny Abdeljabbar. What's up, man? How are you?
Chilling, man, as per usual. I also want to remark that we're getting started a lot faster than we usually do. It usually takes us like 15, 20 minutes to get going, and I think we've been on for like 6 minutes. So, new record.
We have shit to do. Well,
Yeah.
I have shit to do. I'm flying out tomorrow, so
Where you headed?
can't be up all night talking about fucking nonsense like what
Yeah.
we're about to talk about today.
Where are you going?
I'm going to Charleston, South Carolina.
Nice. Business, pleasure, both?
Maybe a little bit of both. No, just mini vacation, seeing friends out there.
Nice. Well, and hope you enjoy your time there so we can just jump right in if you want.
It.
So
I appreciate it. It's going to be warmer there.
Yeah, it should be.
But you know what? It's been like 50 here in New York for the past like week.
I heard it's allergy season.
It's I haven't got hit yet, but it's getting better. But I'm excited to be traveling to the south to a place that's not, at least like in New York right now, the winds are just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So like every night, every morning, my trash cans are just fucking all over the place because the wind gust is just so strong.
Mm-hmm.
That's been the bad part about this winter is the wind gust plus the chill.
Yeah.
But it has been very brutal. But you know what? Thank God we have innovators like Elon Musk with his invention of the electric automobile.
Okay.
That
That's how you want to get
reduce
started.
carbon emissions and, reduce these crazy weather patterns that we're having, or these crazy climate trends. Like we shouldn't be having a polar vortex in the Northeast. It should be, it's been colder in the continental United States than in like Norway or in parts of Alaska this winter.
And I'm guessing that you say that we have to buy some Teslas in order to make that happen, right?
Yes, we all need to buy some Teslas to make that happen. Every single one of you. A Tesla, not some Prius or hybrid, a Cybertruck.
Okay.
A fucking Cybertruck. But yeah, so we're going to talk about Elon Musk today. So I'll just preface this as this episode will probably piss people off because I think everyone has a strong opinion on Elon Musk. I don't actually really have that strong of an opinion on him. I'm just more so, there's some things I like about Musk. There's some things I don't like about Musk. There's some things I find extremely odd and weird about him. But overall, I don't dislike him or hate him or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I respect him as a business person. I think he's done some great things. I think he's done some, has had some mistakes. I think he's done a lot of things, within his, or, for his self-interest. But all in all, is he a net positive to society? I guess, we don't know that yet, but, I'm waiting to see. You, on the other hand, hate his guts.
Way to characterize it that way. I don't hate him.
Well, you, on the other hand, are extremely critical of him.
Yeah. And I think it's fair to be critical of the person that is unelected, that is currently has a lot of, oversight and control in our current administration. I think it's like once you're in that public spotlight, like you are open for scrutiny. I think we should be scrutinizing everyone who has any say in how our government is run. I don't think that's wrong.
Okay. I understand. And I concede the argument that liberals are making about Musk, about all this, this rich tech oligarch having all this tremendous power, owning a media company, owning his own media company, owning, being the richest man in the world. His influence on politics, his close association with Trump. I understand all of that criticism, and I think it's warranted. On the other hand, I think I think at this point, I feel like a lot of people are trying to undercut everything he's ever did in his life. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that. But I don't know. I want to hear your side because I'm by no means, I'm not, again, I'm like kind of an uninterested party to it. Like I'm ambivalent to Musk. I don't really have that strong of opinion on him, but I want to hear your criticism and then I'll push back on things that I think, maybe are not fair.
Sure. Well, I guess to start, what I think is warranted about criticizing him is that he's got this weird myth that about him that I think blinds a lot of people to the dangers of the power that he holds without accountability. And I think that's the frame under which I kind of, put together this, the notes for this episode. He's often seen as an innovator who's reshaped entire industries and pushed, us to this like sci-fi future, which in many ways he has. And I'll give him credit where it's due as we go along. But, one thing to note, obviously, as of this year, he's the richest person on the planet. He's worth $215 billion. Puts him almost $40 billion ahead of the next guy, Bernard Arnault. And, he's got his name on, as you said, some of the biggest companies of our time. He's associated with PayPal, Tesla, SpaceX, Starlink, Twitter, or X, as they're calling it now, which I'm going to refuse to say X because I don't like it. And on the surface,
it makes it seem like a porn site.
It really does.
So
but
my
actually,
wife saw
this
like
X name is part of the history too. So we'll go over why he's so got such a hard on for the letter X.
Well, I'll just tell you, I'm sure this has happened to a lot of guys where their wives or girlfriends saw their phone and like X is like a home app, and they're like, "What the fuck is that?"
Yeah.
And so my wife did. She's like, "What's X?" She thought it was a porn site, and I'm like, "Oh, it's what Twitter is now."
See, for me, if my fiance saw X on my phone, I'd be like, it's porn, because I wouldn't want her to know that it was on X.
It is since Musk. I don't know if we're going to talk about Twitter that much today, but I will say maybe we can start this off. I'm a complete Twitter consumer. Like I don't tweet or anything. I just don't have the time.
You're a lurker.
Yeah, I'm a lurker. We have the Bro History Twitter page. I'll retweet stuff once in a while, but I don't really post that much because I don't really have time. I feel you see these people on Twitter who have, if you look like how many tweets they've made, it's like hundreds of thousands. Yeah. So they're tweeting like 20 to 30 times a day. And I'm like, man, what do you do all day? Like you must be paid. I guess you are literally paid to be on that app now through ad revenue, but
yeah,
I don't think it's that much. I think a lot of people are on Twitter are just like political agents who are on there to push messaging.
Or bots.
Those are the people in a lot of cases who are tweeting like 30 times a day. And it's like you see all these tweets that are like completely coordinated together where they have the same exact buzzwords. And like, oh, there's like a PR company that's like feeding them the messages, and they're just like pushing out a coordinated message to get it trending.
Yeah,
it's like it's so obvious. But with
we can return to Twitter because that is kind of an important part of this. But and I think just generally speaking, just to kind of refocus, like he's clearly got a lot of accolades under his belt, and on the surface, this looks like a classic success story. But honestly, once you start pulling at some of these threads, the whole thing looks a lot more mythologized than real, right? And again, the key point is that Musk isn't like this innovator that built all of these things. I mean, he's an investor, and that's fine. Like it's totally fine. It's actually quite great that he's picked a lot of winners, but that's not the myth that's around Elon. The myth that's around Elon is that he's this visionary, and honestly, a lot of his biggest wins right now have leaned heavily on government money and contracts. And a lot of his failures are often tied up in hype and overreach and red tape and oftentimes it's just like self-inflicted wounds, to be honest. Yeah, at heart, it's he's more of a high-powered capitalist operator, the kind of person who would leverage money and media and political access to stay, like indispensable. And in that sense, I think he starts looking less like a Steve Jobs and more like a mashup of America's old school power players. I'm talking about people like JP Morgan and his financial clout, Rupert Murdoch and his media control, J. Edgar Hoover and his grip on sensitive data, and maybe even a little bit of Henry Kissinger with like some behind the scenes diplomacy stuff.
Well, Steve Jobs didn't build Apple's circuit boards or write its operating software. Steve Wozniak did that.
Exactly.
So Steve Jobs was the businessman, just like how Elon Musk is the businessman.
Right.
I don't know how many people,
but he was a founder of Apple, like a true founder of Apple. And what we'll find out here is that a lot of these things he wasn't the founder of.
Musk, I don't know. We'll probably debate about this, but like, I think for all intents and purposes, you can consider Musk a founder of Tesla. I know you're going to get into like the actual backstory.
Reasons, yeah, you can.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll talk about that. I know you're going to, say that he's not, he wasn't there from when Tesla began in 2003, 2004.
Yeah. Let's get there later. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, he certainly was there. He was certainly the top guy there when Tesla took off.
Sure.
After 2008. I mean, I think that would classify as a founder. And we'll talk about the lawsuit stuff and all that, I guess, later in the episode. But,
anyway,
yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I agree with you in this sense. So, yeah, I think Musk, Steve Jobs didn't really get involved in geopolitics. Right. Musk is actively involved in geopolitics. He's actively involved in global politics on every level. Mm-hmm. I would even make the argument that, just how like JP Morgan and Rupert Murdoch and all these guys that you mentioned, they had like intense, massive global power. I would even argue that the Twitter buyout, which was put under the guise of free speech, I think it was more so just an opportunity for him to control his own media company and push messaging in certain countries.
Maybe.
So, for example, like if Musk wanted to, he could boost, change the algorithm to change an election outcome in a specific country. Let's just say like Argentina, for example, with Javier Milei. Javier Milei had like a huge boost through Twitter, through social media. Like he had all these clips that went viral. And you could say that, you can go down this rabbit hole if you would want. I kind of have like a loose theory that Musk kind of installed him as a way to get favorable mining rights to Argentina's lithium reserves.
That's a theory.
So I agree with you in that sense. Like he has this tremendous power, and he stepped outside of like the cool tech innovator like Steve Jobs. And
once he did that, then I think he opened himself up to a lot of scrutiny from my perspective, right? Because now he has huge ties with the Trump administration. He controls systems like SpaceX and Starlink, which are basically at this point like critical military assets. And his influence inside specifically the DOGE department gives him a lot more sway over U.S. government and entities that are regulating him specifically than any other private citizen, I think probably ever, right? And I think if history tells us anything, that putting this much unchecked power in the hands of one very unelected billionaire, especially one that happens to be the richest man on the planet, I think it should give a lot of people a reason to think critically about whether we're okay with this.
Well, you're talking about like myth. You know, it's kind of funny. We're doing this in a break episode between our South Africa series, our Boer War series, where we talk a lot about. There's a lot of kind of Boer mythology, so it's kind of in tune with his Afrikaner roots.
Yeah, very much.
But did you know that he's #1 Diablo player in the world?
That is, we were talking about that on the Shoot the Shit episode. That is probably the weirdest flex that he has. Tell everybody about this story, Henry.
So, I mean, he allegedly is the greatest Diablo player in the world, and it wasn't Diablo that he got caught. It was another video game. I don't know what it's called, but I know there's another game. And I guess what he did is that I don't play online RPGs or anything like that, so I don't really know that much about the specifics, but from what I saw he was accused of was that he I guess he purchased or he had somebody build up a character to max out all the stats. So like all of his gear in the game will just like one hit everything. And then he did a live stream, you know, in order to achieve this character, I'll preface, it takes like the nerds who I saw talking about this, it takes like hundreds and hundreds of hours to build a character this strong.
Right.
So when he live streamed, all the nerds who were watching it, they recognized, like, they were like, oh, wait, he doesn't actually know how to play the game. He's like farming the wrong crystal, and he's like not using the UI to its optimization. He's not optimizing the UI the correct way. Like, these nerds like caught on to him not really being good at the game, but at the same time, he was claiming that he was the best player in the world. He was like, I'm Musk, and I have the Diablo, and this game, best in the world, huh? So they caught him. And it's just like such a weird thing to lie about. You know, who are you trying to impress? That's something that you would think that people would find unimpressive. Yeah. Like if I told my friends, hey man, I'm the best fucking Pokemon player in the world.
Well, maybe if you were doing that for a living, but when you're like the CEO of multiple, like, $1 billion companies, like, she's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, don't you have a job
when
to do?
He was saying this shit. When he was saying this stuff about being the best Diablo player in the world, I was like, man, like, how does this guy have time to do that?
Yeah, he doesn't.
Because you're competing, I'm assuming, against these dorks that spend 10 hours a day playing that game. And you're running multiple companies and you're a public figure. Like, how do you have time to do anything? Maybe you have like a couple hours a week and that's how you relax, but being the best in the world. So it was just very strange that he would find that to be a flex.
Yeah.
But he's a strange guy. Yeah. I'm not shitting on people with autism at all, because I have a lot of friends. I have friends who are autistic and they're completely normal, easygoing people, but he clearly has autism. He clearly has some type of, I think he said he has Asperger's, which is no longer a diagnosis. It is considered on the spectrum at this point, but he clearly is like, his brain is wired very differently, where, even though like he's like this massive public figure, you still catch on to like his awkwardness and his unawareness in like different situations. Like, I don't think he knew that was weird. That would be a weird thing for most people to hear.
Yeah, maybe.
But maybe I'm looking too far into it. And honestly, this is a very minor thing compared to the rest of the things that we're talking about. So let's talk about let's talk about his business origins with PayPal and I know his eventual stakes in Tesla.
All right, cool. So, like I was saying before, if you were to write down Elon's achievements at face value, it's like super understandable to think of Elon as like, wow, Elon like sounds like this genius visionary. And I think that's kind of the problem, because it sounds that way, but when you think about it critically and actually look at the stories behind a lot of these myths, the illusions fall apart pretty quickly. And what you're left with is just, he's a pretty good investor. And again, that's fine, right? Like that could have just been his thing. And, I'd have very little criticism of him. But let's try and break some of those illusions, because there's a lot of bullshit about what he's done. So early businesses, Musk's first company was called Zip2, which he founded with his brother Errol. Zip2 was basically like a hybrid of a digital Yellow Pages and a MapQuest. MapQuest, for you youngins out there, that's like the Google Maps before Google Maps was Google Maps. It basically like rode the .com wave and to his credit, successfully. In 1996, they got like $3 million in venture capital from a prominent Silicon Valley VC.
Remember when you had to look, when you were going somewhere you never went before, and you're like, oh, fuck, I got to find directions. And you had to MapQuest it, and you had to like write down. I would write down the directions in like a notebook.
Yep. I used to be the designated MapQuest guy when we would go on little trips with my friends. Because I wasn't directionally challenged.
Now I use GPS so much, like I rely on Google Maps, or actually I use Apple Maps more, that like my sense of direction has, that part of my brain is now underdeveloped.
Yeah, I feel that. I definitely have a bit of that symptom now.
Where I'm like, fuck, I need to go somewhere that's 3 miles away, and like I actually don't know like what's the best way to get there, and I have to put on my Google Maps, and I'm like, man, I really couldn't get there without using Google Maps, and it brings shame. Like I feel shame whenever I do it. The easiest thing to do would just be not to turn it on and just like figure it out like the good old days. But
sometimes when I'm driving around in Puerto Rico, I'll intentionally just not do the GPS. Like I don't necessarily do that to get somewhere, especially somewhere I've never been, but I try to do it on the way back a lot, like just to like flex that muscle a little bit. And like I want to say 75% of the time I find my way home without the GPS, and then the other 25% I'm like, oh shit, and my fiance has to turn on the GPS because I have no idea where I'm going. But yeah, that's weird. Anyway, so they got $3 million from a venture capital in Silicon Valley, and a big part of that deal was that Elon would be removed as the CEO and replaced with someone more experienced. This is totally normal, totally expected. I'm not going to hate on them for this. He built a good product that he was able to give a winning pitch to a VC, and that's an actual success. That's great. The thing I'm trying to argue is that he just wasn't a great chief executive then, and that's why he was replaced. And I'm going to argue later that he still isn't a great chief executive, but what's important to keep in mind is that Zip2, the company that he's founded, wasn't a financial success until after he was replaced. So he got something off the ground, and for that, I think he deserves some credit. But his payout, it didn't come until 3 years later, after being replaced in 1999, when Zip2 was acquired by Compaq for $307 million. And that
but he was like in his 20s then.
Yeah, of course. Again, I literally spelled it out very clearly. I'm not hating on him for being replaced. He just wasn't a good chief executive then.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that. Totally normal, right? Totally normal, right? This trend will repeat when he gets older, right? So that netted Musk $22 million for his 7% stake in the company. And this is like his first little, dip into money. So later on, same year, 1999, he founded X.com. So this is where that like weird obsession with the letter X is. And he used about $12 million of his Zip2 earnings to get that off the ground. Now, X.com was a online baking startup that was basically it was like a digital clown car. There was like no fraud protection, really bad branding, shit security. But what it did have going for it was a shit ton of cash from Zip2. And Musk used that cash to grow a massive user base. And how he did that was pretty unique for the time. So what he was doing was offering free online checking accounts and like a $20 to $25 sign-up bonus to new users. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a lot right now. Keep in mind, this is like 1999 money, so there is some inflation going on there. However, free checking accounts wasn't a thing at the time. and on top of that, to ask for to offer $25 to sign up, that was incredibly enticing for a lot of people, you know. And if you look at it one way, you really have to give him credit for this, right? Offering free money to get a bank account was basically unheard of, especially, you know, for that free checking account too. And, you know, he was basically bribing users to outcompete his rivals. And while it worked, it was also a very expensive customer acquisition strategy. But there was this bigger problem with X.com, and you know, it was that the banking platform itself was kind of trash, right? It wasn't good. And it was so bad that in one way you can look at those sign up bonuses as more of a, like, he had to pay people to sign up kind of play, right? And the result was that he ended up having to pivot his business model to the online payment space, which was growing at the time, but it was already fiercely competitive. And due to like a lack of his product clarity and a lot of the technical instability that you know I'm highlighting, he had a super high burn rate. His customer acquisition strategy was just bleeding money, and it contributed to a lot of growing concerns among some of the other investors in this company and, of course, the staff. Now, on the side, kind of happening in the same time, one of his biggest competitors in the online space, in the online payment space, was called Comfinity, and that was founded by Peter Thiel, Max Levchin, and Luke Nozick. Now, Comfinity had a proven, secure, and easily scalable payment system, and it was already seeing a lot of success with consumers and eBay merchants, right? So it's huge with the eBay crowd. But like X.com, Comfinity was still struggling due to how competitive the space was. Remember, they're competing against the guy who says, I'll give you $25 to sign up for my thing, right? So by early 2000, both companies were burning through substantial amount of venture capital. And so they proposed a merger of the two companies. So merging both of those companies allowed them to pool their resources and reduce competitive pressure while also allowing for a more aggressive expansion into that online payments space. And so this combined company could leverage X.com's brand and more specifically its user base with Comfinity's superior payment system to like basically dominate that online financial services market. And so in March 2000, those two companies merged and they rebranded the payment product Comfinity had developed to be called PayPal. Now, after they merged, Musk was at the helm and he was pushing a lot of buggy software, and he actually tried to kill the PayPal name. Not really super important, but like he really wanted it to be X.com. And eventually he got fired by the board while he was on vacation, which is wild. Basically, he sucked at being a chief executive then too, right? And everyone hated him. And again, that's not abnormal, right? You still got to give him credit. He was able to create a new product and got enough users that it was an attractive enough prospect to merge with another company that would eventually become PayPal, right? That's an accomplishment. He just wasn't very good at being the chief executive, and so he got booted for that. And so Peter Thiel steps in. You know, he was the co-founder of Comfinity, and he assumed the role of CEO after Musk was removed from his position in October 2000. 2 years later, in 2002, PayPal sold to eBay for $1.5 billion, right? And there's the pattern. PayPal became successful after Musk was forced out, just like Zip2. But sure, yeah, he is a co-founder, right? If by co-founder you mean the guy who almost tanked the company and got kicked out with some stock options, you know? And the truth about PayPal, I think, is so important to start with, because this is really what gives him his big break. Like Zip2 was helpful and very important, but PayPal gave him like big boy money, you know? And it also gave him a shit ton of unearned credibility and you know, for doing that. So yeah, that's PayPal.
Well, I don't know that much about those days, so I really can't refute much of what you're saying. You know, the guys that you mentioned, Peter Thiel and Mark Levchin, like those are other guys who have massive political power.
Sure. They do.
I mean, especially, Peter Thiel is he's the one of the main Trump people, one of the main Trump backers.
Yeah, I mean, he's the reason why JD Vance has a job, literally.
Yeah, that's true. He
like
is,
literally he hired him to do unclear things. Out of school.
I mean, if you want to do an episode on JD Vance and Peter Thiel, that would be an interesting episode.
Yeah, we can follow up with that. Yeah,
because I've read a little bit about it, and it's just like we were talking about it in our Substack episode where Vance was kind of like the token hillbilly in the Ivy League system.
Yeah,
and he ingratiated himself with these big power players like Thiel, and he somehow ends up working at this like private equity firm, but it's like kind of like a no-show job, and then he becomes like essentially like a political agent for Thiel, and now he's vice president, and I don't know, 50-50 shot that he'll be president in 4 years or so. So it is interesting that this they call it PayPal mafia.
yeah.
It's interesting that these like tech lords it feels like these tech lords are like replacing the current elites with their own right now. Like that's like kind of like what we're seeing in this transition. Like they're kind of like putting their own people in government, and they're kind of assuming power. They're making themselves like the dominant powers of the United States, therefore the world. It's an interesting network to dive down into, but let's not get too off track. Let's continue to talk about Musk. Why don't we jump and talk about Tesla?
Yep. Okay. So I'm going to start with the the spicy fact. Tesla wasn't founded by Musk. At least not in the true
fucking
in the
thinks
true
that
sense
Tesla
of
was founded by Musk.
Dude, you have no idea how many people actually think Elon Musk founded Tesla. Like literally built it from the ground up. So many people think that. This is my argument for this show. Yeah, well, this is my argument for this show because he didn't, right? And there's nothing wrong with being an investor. And if he would just keep his mouth shut and not lie about being the number one player in Diablo, this is exactly the same thing. He's trying to flex about shit he didn't do when he has plenty of other accomplishments that he could flex about. And all of that wouldn't matter at all to me if it wasn't that he is now currently amassed so much money and power and so much influence over our government that that's the whole reason why I'm like investigating him, because it's worth looking into the people that have this much power because it has real world implications. Anyway, let's get back on track. His association with the company is widely misunderstood, is what I'm trying to say, right? And it's an honest mistake that a lot of people make because Elon himself, he made himself the founder, and it's what he wants you to believe, that it's his brainchild, it's his baby. In a lot of ways, that's true, but like the specifics matter, right? So Tesla was founded in 2003 by Mark Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning, and they had a vision of building a high-performance electric vehicle, right? And they incorporated into Tesla Motors on July 1st, 2003. Eberhard was the CEO. Tarpenning was the CFO. In early 2004, they began seeking investment to scale their work, like every other startup company. Now, Musk comes in, and he's fresh from that sale of PayPal, right? Just 2 years later. And he led Tesla's Series A round of funding in February 2004. And he contributed $6.5 million of the $7.5 million raised for the round. And this made him the largest stakeholder and earned him the role of the board chairman. And while that is a significant stake, this is a typical structure for early stage startups. And I'm going to argue that this doesn't constitute like saving the company in any way.
So when you mean save, you're referring to him stepping in and basically saving Tesla from bankruptcy, right?
Right. Like, so there's this argument that goes around that says, well, Tesla was, on the route of collapsing. And then Elon Musk came in and said, hey, I'll give you $6.5 million to save your company. That wasn't the case. They were just raising money, just like Zip2 raised money, just like X.com raised money. They were just raising money. Every startup at this stage needs capital to move forward, and it's not uncommon for one large investor to take up the majority of the stake.
Yeah, but that's not. I don't really think that's true though. Like the role that Musk played with Tesla's Series A was not typical. Was not like your typical standard funding. Like if you contribute 90% of a Series A, that's not normal. That's atypical. Most Series A rounds, they're syndicated with multiple fees, contributing smaller percentages. So this wasn't like a routine Series A funding. Musk was putting in his own capital, his own personal capital.
Okay, but what I'm not arguing against that, Henry. What I am arguing is that there is this myth that he saved the failing Tesla by giving them $6.5 million. That's not what happened. Yes, he contributed 90% of the Series A, and that's atypical. It's not impossible, and it's not unheard of either, but it is atypical. Most Series A's, as you said, include multiple VCs, and they all contribute smaller packages, but there usually is one main investor. Now, they won't put up 90%, but they might put up 40 or 50% of the entire round, right? And that would be typical. So it's atypical in the sense that he contributed more. But again, this was Elon Musk's choice, right? It was his choice to put up that much money. It wasn't that, I have to put up this money, otherwise the company goes under. They had multiple people investing. And the thing about Series A funding is you don't want too many people investing at the same time because it dilutes everyone's stake in the game, right? It overinflates the valuation. And usually when you get enough money out of an initial funding round, the people who are already committed to funding you will say, all right, that's enough. We're not gonna, no more additional investors, because then their portion of the game gets cut out. And literally the same thing happened with Elon Musk. He found something that he thought he really liked and that he believed in. And he's like, I love this shit. I'm going to put up all of the money so that I can have all of the control of it because I think it's going to work. And yeah, then they ended it, right? He was like, no more additional investors. Like, that's it. I got you. I'll pay for all of it. That's how that went down.
Yeah. And so no wonder he wanted to be considered a founder.
Okay, let's move on. We'll talk about that.
But it's like, all right. So Musk, there was a lawsuit to make him to put himself as a founder,
That's right.
to legally make himself a founder.
That's correct.
And I hear people are like, oh well, he sued his way at the top of the company. I mean, that's like pretty standard. Like, there's legal suits all the time.
I'd argue, yeah. I'd argue with you on that. Yeah,
in court for percentages of equity and stuff like that. That's not like.
Well, no. So the actual story behind that, though, that lawsuit was given by Eberhard because Musk at the time was the chairman, and then he moved to have Eberhard removed so that he can take up that chief executive position. Right? Eberhard sued him for libel and some other shit as well. He basically said he libel and slander, and that's why he got removed from his position at the company. And they settled out of court. They didn't go to court for the libel and the slander. Elon Musk settled with Eberhard, but part of that settlement included the ability to allow himself to say that he is a founder of Tesla.
Okay.
That was the concession that they made for a completely unrelated thing. Again, just for the flex, right? It had nothing to do with the lawsuit itself. It was just for the flex. I am a founder.
Yeah, but I understand that why he would want to be called a founder if he's putting that much. If he
Sure.
is
Sure, he would
being,
want
if
to
he's,
be called a
because
founder.
it wasn't like he was just sitting on the board and he was like he was attending quarterly reviews and giving some advisor and giving some served as like a passive advisor. He was hands on with the company. Like as soon
Yeah,
as
and
he
I'm going
got
to argue
involved,
that
he was extremely hands on.
yeah, and I'm going to argue that as soon as he got involved, he started creating problems, right? So there's this weird.
Yeah, but the thing about when Tesla first started, it was like they were making like luxury vehicles. The I think it was
And
Musk, and I don't know, maybe I have this like wrong, but when they started, it was Musk's idea to like use the revenue from selling luxury vehicles and to invest that into R&D to make more consumer friendly vehicles like the Model 3.
that was always the idea. That was always Tesla's idea. That wasn't Musk's unique
Okay.
idea. That was always the idea. And part of the reason why he was probably so interested in it, right? Why he was like, yeah, this is great. Like, you guys have some awesome technology, and I see the vision, and I want to give you $6.5 million. You know, so and this is important, right? Because again, I don't care if Elon Musk wants to pretend that he is the founder, or I also don't care, or I could agree with that maybe he should be called founder because he did invest a substantial amount of money in the company. I get it. Makes sense. I don't care about that. What I care about is that he's created this myth that blinds people about his competence, and it covers up a lot of his incompetence in this sense, right? So here's how it went down. A lot of people have this myth where Tesla was about to go bankrupt, and then Elon Musk swooped in and gave him money, and he saved the company. But actually, the truth is that they were just raising money, as every company does at that stage. And the even more truth was that the story that you've heard about Tesla almost going under is actually a story from 2008, notably after Elon had already invested in the series, after he already became the CEO, where Tesla was indeed on the brink of collapse. And then Elon secured a last-minute investment on Christmas Eve to prevent a collapse. So a lot of people mistake that 2008 story for the 2004 story of him taking over in the first place.
Yeah, but so Tesla was going through a financial crisis because of the global financial crisis that was happening in 2008.
Oh?
So like it wasn't Tesla's not a software startup. Like they had massive manufacturing and supply chain and R&D costs. And yeah, they weren't getting revenue. They didn't have that much revenue yet, but they made it the financial crisis made an automobile manufacturer uniquely exposed to liquidity dry ups. So you can't like pin all that.
That's a really good point, Henry.
You can't pin that all on Musk. It was the fucking.
But then this is like double speak,
was
Henry.
failing at that time.
This is what I get annoyed about, right? This is double speak.
But let me just finish my point.
Okay, go ahead.
Musk stepped in 2008, and he didn't. It wasn't like a typical fundraising. It was he injected $40 million into Tesla, and yeah, he laid off like a bunch of staff.
$6.5 million was the first round.
No, the Series A
was
$6.5. But then he put in like $40 million when they were about to go bankrupt.
Right, in 2008, while he was at the helm.
So let's just make sure we're on the same timeline. So Musk gets involved in 2004, right? So early 2004, he put $6.5 million into Series A. So essentially 90% of the Series A was funded by Musk.
Right. So from 2004 to 2007, he's the the majority position in the company, and he's on the board.
Okay, he's on the board, but he's hands on, and
then from 2007 to 2008, he booted Eberhard, and he became the CEO.
Okay,
so he was a CEO for 1 year, and then on Christmas of 2008, that's when the issue where they were on the actual brink of collapse happened. And yes,
so after the financial crisis,
I'll grant you, financial crisis probably didn't help him, but this is the doublespeak part, right? Nobody is willing to say, like, we're trying to say that some people are trying to say that, like, he saved Tesla by injecting all his money in it in 2004, and so he's the savior. But when he is literally in control of the company and it's on the brink of collapse, oh, that's not his fault. That's the global market.
I don't know. I think stepping up and having a huge and putting in a huge cash injection in a company that's about to go bankrupt, but you have the vision that this company's going to be successful, and it turns out that way, is like pretty, not only great foresight, but like that's like some pretty tremendous will to do that.
Well, it's some pretty tremendous money to do that, to be clear.
It's tremendous. Because, I mean, yeah, he was a billionaire, but still, like, that's a fucking huge risk.
That's kind of the point.
That wasn't like a normal thing. It's like, oh, I got my it's not like,
of course not. But
I have my fucking portfolio, and I'm going to step away from this company,
else,
and I'm going
to. This is my point, and this like kind of goes against what I'm saying a little bit.
He loves Tesla.
Yeah, no, he does. Yeah, he does. He truly does. I'm not arguing against that. I think he really truly believes in it, and that's awesome. And it's in a way it kind of vindicates him, that Christmas Eve deal. But the point though is that it was under his leadership that shit went down.
Yeah, but then he took accountability for it. And then
because he had the money to take accountability for it.
He absorbed the blast radius himself.
Well, not himself. No. So you say, I'm going to push back on you on that one. He raised hundreds of millions of dollars. He injected a lot of his own money into it, but he did raise additional money from outside investors.
Yeah, but he was able to raise outside money because of the huge injection he personally put in.
It's the other way around. He had to put in money because he couldn't make the difference. He was originally not going to put all that money in.
Injecting money into Tesla.
No, Henry. That's the other way around. He was raising money to stave off this issue, and when he couldn't make the amount of money that he needed to pony up his own cash. It wasn't, oh, I'm going to put up my own cash. Why don't you join me? It's the other way around.
Still,
yeah, he put in a lot of money, so we'll give him the credit for doing it, right? Because later,
right, I need to look at this. I need to fucking look at these numbers right now.
because later,
like, I can't hear you. I can't. You're breaking up. I think we lost Danny. Sorry, we're gonna have to end the episode.
All right, look. The thing is,
I'm having trouble hearing you. There's some static. I don't know. Are you a mute, Danny?
We're gonna move on. We're gonna move on from the 2008.
You said in the last like 2 minutes.
We're gonna move on from the 2008.
Right, I want to fucking see this, and then I'll say.
Let's move on. Let's move on. Okay, so let's say. Okay, fine, Henry, you're right. 2008 was tough for everyone, and Elon Musk, he really did a Herculean effort, and he ponied up his own cash, and he rallied the troops, and he got more investors, and he saved Tesla. Okay, fine. He repeated this pattern again 10 years later, and this time by his own admission, right? So from a tweet response in the middle of a discussion about Tesla fundraising, Tesla's fundraising history, one of his followers asked him how close Tesla was from bankruptcy when bringing the Model 3 to mass production, right? And Musk replied, closest we got was about a month. Model 3 ramp was extreme stress and pain for a long time, from mid-2017 to mid-2019, production and logistics hell. So by Musk's own admission, and this is 10 years after that 2008 situation, he was within a month of bankruptcy. That's not necessarily like, I'm not going to hate on him for being a good investor or a good fundraiser. Tesla's a fantastic investment on his part. What I am saying is that he has this pattern of overextending and losing a shit ton of money when he's in control, just like he did with Zip2, just like he did with X.com, and just like he's doing with Tesla or has done with Tesla. It is a pattern. He's not a good chief executive because
I don't know, man.
A good
the
chief
Model
executive
3,
would not be 1 month from this is to his own admission. He created production and logistics hell, right? He put these unreasonable production goals on his team and burned through a shit ton of money to where, and I'm going to talk more about this in a moment, to where they had to rebuild and remodel the Model 3 because they made so many goddamn mistakes that they had to go back to the drawing board to fix them. And that's why from mid 2017 to mid 2019, he was within a month of going bankrupt because of choices that he made fully at the helm and without the specter of a financial crisis behind him.
The model, but here's what you're saying. You're like, oh, like it was such a crazy production schedule, and the conditions were so bad that he almost ran the company into the ground because of the risks and the overextension.
But what happened after No. Self-inflicted wounds, Henry.
Okay,
he created the conditions by which, like, he should have been able to pull it off if he was a better chief executive.
But dude,
he wasn't.
What happened? But he did pull it off. The Model 3 is the best-selling fucking electric vehicle ever.
To his own admission,
the Model 3 is like the most successful. It's I don't know. Is there anything even close to the Model 3 in sales?
In electric vehicle sales?
In electric vehicles, yeah.
No. In regular vehicle sales? Hell yeah. Lots more cars get sold than that. Toyota fucking Camry gets sold more than that.
Yeah, but that's because the Model 3 is more expensive than a Camry.
Okay, fine.
A Camry's
F-150 sells more than that.
A Camry's what, like $28,000? What's the model?
Well, that's actually more to the point because remember, we were talking about Model 3, or rather, the goal was to use the luxury cars to make, cheaper, more consumer-facing cars. Model 3 is not a cheap consumer-facing car.
I mean, it's cheap. It's affordable.
I don't know if $49,000 is particularly affordable.
It's not an $80,000 car.
Say what?
It's not an $80,000 car.
Well, $80,000 car is a luxury class car. Nobody's talking about that. The goal was to use these expensive cars to fund the R&D to make the cheap cars. And the goal was to make this car the cheap car. And because of his leadership, he was not able to meet his own goals and deadline of creating a cheap, affordable car. And now they're thinking about doing another one later that's going to be cheaper, but we'll see because like his ability to make good on his own stated promises he has no credibility there.
But I understand. I feel like this is nitpicking right now. The Model 3, when Tesla joined the S&P 500, it was the top performing company in the world. I don't know how you can like undercut that accomplishment by saying there was production hell.
I'm making the argument he's a bad chief executive.
Like, of course, like any great project is going to have like huge issues, especially one as ambitious as the Model 3. Like it released and it was a humongous success.
So like, we're just going to ignore the fact that he almost ran in the company into the ground?
Yes, we are, because he fucking we are going to ignore the fact that he almost ran the company to the ground.
The point is that like he has
because the outcome,
billions of dollars in capital to make the mistakes
success
that other people can't, right? And I'm not going to hate on him for that, but like a lot of this is not like he's this like amazing chief executive. He has the bandwidth to make a shit ton of mistakes. He has the financial bandwidth to make as many mistakes as he wants.
Well, you know what? Sometimes there's trial by fire. He has money, and he's willing to lose money. But that's also what makes him successful. He can absorb
Money
blows.
makes him successful. So I just want to be clear. Money makes him successful. Is that the argument there?
Yeah, and he has a lot of it.
So if I had a lot of money, I'd be successful.
Maybe. Maybe.
That's kind of my point.
Are you gonna
right?
make a model? Are you gonna make the best-selling electric vehicle?
If I had Elon Musk's money,
technically, it was the engineers. Like, yeah, no shit, it was the engineers who made the
if
car.
I had Elon Musk's money, I'd do exactly what Elon Musk did. I'd find people who are actually building electric vehicles and that are better than Teslas. And yeah, I would invest in that.
Being a CEO of a company is so incredibly stressful. And it's like, there's a reason these guys die of heart attacks when they're like 50.
Dude, I don't doubt it.
It's an incredibly stressful job. The amount of shit that you have to deal with, the amount of fucking fires and problems you're dealing with at all times. Yeah, this was a high-risk company. It's an a startup automobile manufacturer. Of course they're going to run into huge problems. Like I
guess my point though, Henry, is that he's not running into natural fucking problems. A lot of the problems that he faced were self-inflicted problems. When we're talking about the Model 3, the way that he created the Gigafactory to mass produce these things, he and by his own admission put way too much automation into that Gigafactory, where these cars, like those robots and machines, weren't doing a better job at installing body panels or wiring harnesses, and it was creating additional costs and delays and production delays. That was his call. His dream, his vision was to make a technological, what did he call it? Alien dreadnought. That's literally his words. Alien dreadnought that builds these cars. And yeah, I fucking applaud him for his big ideas, because I think that's fucking fantastic, right? But these are what I'm trying to make the argument that he's not a good chief executive because he wasn't thinking practically. And because he has the financial bandwidth to make as many mistakes as he wants, he could pull it off. Even if he does make a million mistakes, it doesn't make him special, or more specifically, it doesn't make him a good chief executive.
I don't know, Danny.
If he didn't have the capital,
the end result, and I'm like, okay,
you're an ends justify the means kind of guy.
What's that?
You're an ends justify the means kind of guy. I'm a means justify the ends kind of guy.
In some cases, yeah.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is he's not
logistics problems they had.
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm going to pull back a little bit, right? Because we're really in the weeds for Tesla, and then we'll come back in. My point is, there is this myth about Elon Musk that he's this amazing chief executive. I'm hopefully articulating the case that he is not he's not a very good chief executive. Where his strength is, he has money. And so he can make a shit ton of mistakes because he has money. But now that he has access to and influence over the way that our government works, no amount of money that he has is going to save normal people from the mistakes that he invariably will make and has been making right now.
Okay.
He's not qualified in that sense. If you look at his actual record, he's not qualified to be able to make the executive decisions that are necessary for the government to run, because it doesn't matter how much money he has. He can't bail out the US government when he fucks it up.
Well,
so going back to let's go back to this.
Agree. Listen, I'm with you. I think the power, the influence he has is kind of disturbing, but I don't know. I'm not following the argument that he was a bad CEO because they had problems. Sometimes making the skill of just being, it's a skill to be super rich. Like that's not
maybe.
like, oh, it wasn't like he was fucking, he was
Are
born
you
from an
about to say he
affluent.
wasn't born with money because his dad was an emerald miner? So
Wasn't
don't
that
start
his
with
grandfather who was the
that. Yeah,
emerald
yeah, or
miner?
yeah, his grandfather. But still, his family has money. That's not a question.
I'm not
He
saying he didn't
wasn't.
have money. It's still, I mean, even if you're you're the heir of millions of dollars, of $1 million fortune, to convert that and become a billionaire is pretty
One thing I intentionally,
insane.
since you brought it up, right? And one thing I intentionally left off of my notes on here was that when he started Zip2, it was primarily funded. Remember, he did this with his brother. It was primarily funded by his father. And the reason why I left it off is because I don't see anything wrong with your family helping you out with a business venture, right? I truly don't. And in the case of Zip2, he actually was successful. He built a product that was viable enough to sell to someone else. And I have no issue with that. But if we're now trying, if you're bringing up the argument that like it's a skill to be rich, he started at a point above everyone else. I mean, I certainly couldn't build a Zip2. I could, because my mom wouldn't be able to fund me to do that
I wouldn't
project.
be able to build Zip2 if I was a billionaire. I wouldn't be able to figure that out.
I mean, that's different, right? So like, it doesn't have to be Zip2. It could be something that you're actually good at.
I wouldn't be able to figure out how to, even if I was a millionaire, I wouldn't be able to figure out how to fucking make some successful, or even if it's not a successful company, but to like make a company and then sell it for, billions and make a huge profit. And like, I wouldn't be able to do that.
I think about people
I
like,
don't have those business skills to do something like that.
I think about people like my fiance, for example, right? And you know her, and you know that she's fucking a genius, right? And she has business ventures of her own, and she's a software developer and makes some really awesome shit. What she doesn't have is, massive amount of capital to spin those, frankly, very good businesses that she's built up into a Zip2, if you will. She doesn't have the access to capital that Elon Musk did. So I would argue that maybe you and I couldn't do it, but I think she could, right?
Okay.
And the difference between her and Elon Musk is literally just money. So if money is your only skill, I'm arguing that money doesn't help you run a government. If anything, money is like a conflict of interest in running the government, because now he's regulating the regulators who regulate him and his money.
It's not like this guy, you're not making this claim, so this is a mischaracterization.
Okay.
But I understand when you're criticizing people like what's her name, Elizabeth Holmes.
Okay, yeah. She's a fucking charlatan.
even what's his Vivek Ramaswamy?
Uh-huh.
The way that he made his money is super weird.
What did he do?
He founded some like Alzheimer's drug and made billions off of it, and then sold the company, and then like the drug just never came out.
Weird.
Yeah.
Do you think really it's because the company who he bought it from didn't want the drug to come out because they make more money on something else?
I think it was just the drug didn't pass. I'm speaking out of my ass right now, so I'm basing this off like little blurbs I've read and word of mouth, but I think it didn't like, may have not passed like I don't know, I have to look it up. It didn't come out though, but he made billions off a product that's not on the market, or a drug that's not on the market right now. Like
that's weird.
His products are they're in the market. I mean, I don't know how many Tesla owners there are in the world, but I don't know, hundreds of thousands, millions. I don't know.
It's probably millions.
A stretch?
It's probably millions. Yeah. No, I don't think it's a stretch. I think it's probably millions. I haven't looked it up, but I'd be willing to bet that.
So,
but I mean, back to Tesla. I think one of the things that we can kind of skip over. I was going to talk about fucking cyber trucks and shit like that, but that's not really going to go anywhere in this conversation. TLDR, he had his fingers in the Cybertruck, and like basically all of them have been recalled for one reason or another because he has a lot of weird ideas.
the recall that you're talking about, because like it's all over the news.
So, to be clear,
46,000
truck's been out for like a year, and there have been 9 total recalls since the first delivery. The one that the big one, the recent one, is 46,000 of them, which is pretty much all of them that have been delivered so far. Were all recalled because a body panel was falling off of the thing. And I know you don't think that's a big fucking deal, but if you're driving on the road and a sharp metal body panel flies off, that's a huge hazard risk. It's huge. It's because they were gluing it instead of using fasteners. And the glue sucked. I mean,
there's been...
And then that's
a minor recall compared to other one of the other automobile recalls
was that the accelerator pedal would get stuck.
Wait, which one was that? That was that the I'm trying to think. What was the big? There was the GM recall in 2014 where like 150 people died or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the Toyota recall, and then there was the F-150 recall. Those were all like millions of cars that had to be recalled, and they were like safety issues. With the Cybertrucks, they just had to bolt in. They just had to bolt in the cant rail, and they added like a stronger glue or whatever.
Right.
It wasn't like they had to replace anything huge.
What about the accelerator pedal? That one seems like a pretty big issue, right?
How many were recalled because of the accelerator pedal?
About 5,000.
5,000. Okay, well, that's a bigger issue. But the big one, the 46,000 one, that's like not. I mean, it's a pain in the ass, but
you could make the argument that that's not a big deal and they could just fix it real quick. But what is a big deal, Henry, is the cost associated with that, right? So the cost associated is that they have to take back 46,000, which is almost all of the ones that they delivered, so that they can go fix that issue. And that costs so much fucking money. And that is a major issue for Elon Musk. Major issue. But again, he has so much money he can make these mistakes, right?
Elon Musk. How much money? Can I ask Grok?
I guess another point that might not convince you, but would convince others, is that I think there's a pretty good reason why, of all of the Tesla models, the Cybertruck is the only one that's banned in Europe. And they buy a shit ton of Tesla vehicles. No, they're not.
Because Europeans are pussies. They're scared of it. They're like, it reminds me of Hitler's trucks. Oh,
this is way before he turned into a Nazi.
It's too big.
No, this is way before that.
Clown cars.
Dude, Europe was buying these cars hand over foot, like at high rates, even before we started. Like they
Cybertrucks?
Huge. No. Teslas in general, they still buy it. Well, probably not anymore.
Because they're fruity and they like the eco-friendly car, but the Cybertruck looks like the Batmobile, and it looks like it will smash into a grocery store and
the reason why they're banned is because they have fucking quality control issues and they can't pass safety crash tests. They just can't.
I don't know. I think it's just because they're a bunch of pussies over there.
They just literally can't. It looks like dude. The Cybertruck looks like fucking Lara Croft. No, dude, it looks like Lara Croft Tomb Raider's fucking tits from 1995.
Yeah, it has character.
That's what it looks like.
I think it's like ugly, but like in a cool way.
Dude, I'll give you that.
It looks like it's about to turn into like Optimus Prime or something.
Dude, I'll give you that. Every time I see a Cybertruck, I look at it. So
yeah, I'm always like, ooh, the Cybertruck. It's so big. That's like my reaction
because it's
every
also
time. Like,
fucking
it's
stupid.
So big.
It's just not. It's not a very good truck, to be honest. And I'm a huge car guy. It like literally just this past. It went through its first winter this winter, and it was like fucking struggling in the snow. And also, there's this oversight that they had. Like
it also explodes.
Yeah, it does.
Unless you put a bomb in it or something.
If you put incendiary devices inside it, right?
That's too
soon. The headlights are like there's like this lip on the bumper, and behind the lip are the headlights. And they just recently found out over this past winter that if it's snowing, the snow can collect in front of the headlights and like basically block the headlights. And so now you don't have headlights when it's snowing. It's like a shitty design.
Who needs headlights when you own the road? When you're driving a fucking Cybertruck.
You do when you
probably have night vision goggles anyway. Have you? Let's move on from the Cybertruck. But
okay,
before we do that, have you heard about the trend? I don't know how many people have done this, but it's apparently a thing where libs, fucking liberals, are going around and they're carving in swastikas into Cybertrucks.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you also heard about how Trump says that we should like fucking send those people to an El Salvador prison?
Yeah, that's going a little too far. That's going a little too far. I've been seeing on X X is horrible, by the way. Now Twitter, it's just so much slop. It's like one of the biggest accounts is an account called Cat Turd, and it's just like the dumbest slop in the world. Like, look at this liberal. She doesn't know her pronouns. Yeah. So I guess people are carving in swastikas, and on Twitter there was like a trend with all these influencers saying that they're domestic terrorists, and I'm like, hey, listen, like, I think these people should definitely be arrested, and
hell yeah,
they should be accountable for the property they destroyed. Like, that's fucked up to go into. I don't care if you hate someone's politics or not. If you go and fuck with someone's personal property, you belong in jail. Fucked up. Like, there's something wrong with you if you do that. But
I agree with you.
I mean, I think we're going a little too far calling these people domestic terrorists.
And then a bridge too far for Trump to suggest that maybe we send them to one of those El Salvador prisons. Come on.
When I was younger, I had someone keyed my car. And
I'd be so
I don't know why it happened. I don't know if I did something to the person on the road or whatever, but someone keyed my car. I wasn't like, I was stricken, but a terrorist attack just happened on my car. I just got 9/11. But I think that's a little too far. But why don't we move on from?
All right, I think I got like one more thing about Tesla, and let's just move off of Tesla because I'm getting sick of it. So there's this like. A lot of people make the comparison of Tesla to Ford, and you know, both the car company and the actual guy, Henry Ford. Like, they call him like a modern day one. So, you know, again, this plays into more of the myth, right? Because Elon's PR team wants you to believe that he is like the modern Henry Day Ford because it gives him credibility, right? Now, there's a lot of differences between the two, but there's some similarities too, and we can outline those. So Ford built his company way back before World War I, and he did so without government subsidies or tax credits, which they didn't exist. Elon's gigafactories, which are kind of like Ford's mass production lines, or at least if you want to make that comparison, those were built with billions of dollars of government subsidies. So $1.3 billion for just the Nevada Gigafactory alone. And they have suffered years of delays. So Ford had an assembly line that revolutionized auto manufacturing. It was efficient, it was profitable, and at its peak in 1925 was producing a Model T every 10 seconds, which is just fucking crazy to think about. But they were cranking out cars like crazy. Elon, on the other hand, set a goal of 5,000 Model 3s per week by the end of 2017. He didn't actually reach that target until mid-2018, and often he was struggling to make even 1,000 cars per week in the early months. So it's like that's not not at the same scale. Now, obviously, the complexity of building a Model 3 is way higher than the complexity of building a Model T. But if we're being fair to it, Ford's assembly line was actually efficient. And while Ford and Elon Musk both face criticisms over their workplace conditions, and I'm not going to get into that, just know that they're there. Ford at least doubled the average wage of workers at the time. He doubled the going rate. So I think it was like $5 an hour that he was offering back in $5 a day. She was offering in 1925. Crazy to think that some people were working for $2.50 a day then, even with inflation. That's crazy. Elon, on the other hand, also grueling schedules and a lot of injury-prone work environments, but he's not necessarily offering the same, compensation incentive. He's certainly not doubling people's, regular going rate. I think if you want to make a really strong argument for Tesla, and here's where I will back Elon, even though I'm gonna throw a wrench into it. I'm still gonna back him on this one. Because I think it's a net benefit for the world. His work on creating the supercharger network was by far the most impactful. And in my opinion, the most praiseworthy thing that Elon did for Tesla, for everyone. The charging network, I think, made the product, Tesla specifically, way more commercially viable. Because a big market hesitation to buying electric was, and still is today, range anxiety. So basically, people are afraid to buy an electric car because they're afraid that they'll be driving one day, their car's going to run out of battery, and they're not going to have a place to go and charge it, right? So that right there is by far the most innovative thing that Elon Musk has done under the Tesla umbrella, in my opinion, because it goes beyond, say, like having a wildly successful Model 3, albeit after all of the issues that plagued it, right? This is more important because those supercharger networks are an infrastructure and an ecosystem under which we can actually viably move towards electrifying more vehicles. And I think that's actually very positive. But to be fair, if you're going to give Elon credit for the superchargers, you also have to put one of those little, those funny "I did that" Biden stickers on them, because Tesla is getting $28 million in grants that were awarded from the Biden's NEVI program, was the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, to further scale up supercharging. So, I mean, obviously ponied up a lot of Tesla's money to make this a thing. It was originally closed off to just Teslas. And, government was like, we'll give you money if you make it available for all charging cars. And then he was like, sure, deal. Took government money, and now you can use your Hyundai Iconic to charge at a Tesla supercharger station because the government gave them some money to expand on that. I think that's probably the most positive thing that I'll say about.
Are dealerships required by law to have charging stations now?
Car dealerships?
Yeah.
Like for the public or for their own fleet?
For their own fleet.
I don't know if it's required, but it'd be stupid if they didn't.
I mean, I don't know. That's just. Now we'll go off into it. I was just wondering if there were states that made it like, if you were like regulated to have a charging network at your dealership, even if you didn't sell EVs. But that's a tangent for another day. Okay.
At least in the US, I think all of them have, every car brand has at least one electric model, because there was like some rule that Biden put through that I think Trump is supposedly supposed to be pulling. But all of them have at least one model that's electric.
So, all right, I was going to add another point, but it's not going to really add that much. I was going to say, yeah, like Musk benefits from government subsidies and like many of his businesses, but if you're comparing him to Ford, I mean, Ford was a great man. He was definitely a giant, and I think the wage increases that he made were, very revolutionary in the context of the time. But I will say that, if Ford were alive and he were able to take advantage of government subsidies, he definitely would have.
Of course he would. Yeah,
They didn't exist at the time, and
yeah. Of course he'd be stupid not to.
I mean, back then it was, land was cheaper. Also, like when Ford was starting his factories, the the government was subsidizing roads at the time, which really helped them.
Actually, what helped him probably the most, but this is after he'd already built his massive infrastructure, was that during World War II, the government basically took over a lot of Ford plants to make B-2 bombers, which obviously interrupted his ability to make and sell cars. However, a positive result that came out of that was that the government paid money to upgrade a lot of those facilities, and so after the war was over, now his facilities has a shit ton of awesome new tech and equipment to be able to produce more. But by that point, we're talking about 1925. This is pre-World War II. He had already, been producing 10 Model Ts one Model T every 10 seconds. So, he already built that. Again, I don't want to totally shit on Elon Musk for having a big idea. I just think his execution kind of sucks. And in my opinion, the only reason why he's successful is because he has the ability to dump nearly infinite amount of money into any of his passion projects, where anyone else would have failed.
I don't
I'd
know.
also argue
the
that
only reason
Yes.
that he's
Yes, the only
successful is
reason.
because I disagree.
Yes, the only reason.
I disagree. Listen, I don't know I don't have transcripts of like what goes on at a Tesla board meeting, or like, what his real involvement is in shaping the company. But I mean, I see the end result. I know Tesla's taking a hit now, but what that company was able to achieve
I'd argue
after the Model
that
3 is pretty great.
that's also him being a bad chief executive, just kind of meddling in politics and ruining his own brand is not something that's like other chief executives would have been forced out.
Remember when he was on Joe Rogan, and this was like maybe 5 years ago or so, and he was smoking pot with Joe Rogan on the podcast.
Yeah.
That was weird.
That was another one of those awkward things that he did that was like,
because he did it to like be cool.
Yeah.
He's like, I think it'd be super cool if I was like smoking pot with Joe Rogan on the Joe Rogan show. Can I tell you a story when I was smoking pot with Joe Rogan? It's like you could like feel, how when you're peer pressured when you're younger to do drugs to be cool. There's always that time when there's a bunch of guys, the cool kids are smoking pot. I gotta impress them and make them know that I'm not a narc. I gotta smoke with them. Meanwhile, it gives you like massive anxiety and you're like super paranoid the entire time. But like you have to put on a face to I gotta smoke the weed with these cool kids because they won't think I'm cool. That's the vibe I got with Musk and Rogan. He was like, "Oh, you might not think I'm cool if I don't smoke." It would be really cool. Okay, let's move on from Tesla. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I have nothing else to say. I actually am not a car person at all, so I'm talking out of my ass completely. SpaceX.
SpaceX. That's the miracle of private sector space innovation, right?
Yeah.
All right. So admittedly,
like you can like start your own space company without government.
That used to be, back before I was critical of Elon Musk. This used to be the one that I was like really the most impressed with, because I was like, hey, Elon Musk has a boatload of money, and he says, I'm gonna build fucking rocket ships. And most people are like, you can't do that. And he says, fuck you, I can. I got the money. I'm going to make fucking rocket ships, right? And that was the one, admittedly, that, in my formative years, I was the most impressed by.
I mean, SpaceX is an aerospace company, and like all aerospace companies, like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, they like, who's buying airplanes?
The government.
I mean, who's buying fucking missiles?
The government.
Not me.
Right.
Not yet.
But I mean,
at
like,
least.
he kind of sold me a little bit, because like the goal of making SpaceX is so that, he could eventually, establish a colony on Mars, right? And I'm like, oh, that's fucking cool, right? Like, the sci-fi nerd in me is like, yeah, let's do that, not because I want to leave Earth, like, or whatever, but it'd be nice to have a second option, Fucking asteroid comes to the planet and suddenly we have spaceships. Probably after this episode, I won't be allowed on any of the SpaceX launches, though. I might have fucked myself on that one, but yeah, I mean, this company was founded in 2002 by Musk, so just a couple of years actually before Tesla, and before he invested in Tesla, that is, and he invested $100 million of his own money to get the company off the ground. Early years were rocky. SpaceX's first 3 rocket launches of Falcon 1 between 2006 and 2008, they all failed. And again, that one, they were down to basically their last shot. And they launched a 4th Falcon 1 and they were successful. And that was in 2008. And, they were narrowly collapsing there. Investor confidence was really low. I mean, talk about, like, if you think fucking investing in car companies is a risky move, think about investing in fucking rocket ships. Like, there's like huge risk, but also huge payoff, right? Because days later, after they successfully launched that 4th Falcon 1 rocket, NASA awarded SpaceX a $1.6 billion contract to deliver cargo to the International Space Station. I guess you could say that NASA saved SpaceX like how Elon saved Tesla with their $1.6 billion contract. But that was a joke if you didn't catch on. But I mean, this honestly marked the beginning of SpaceX's like super heavy reliance on US government contracts. But honestly, like, after thinking about it more critically, like, of course, a rocket company is going to be reliant on government contracts because, let's be real, we're not going to be in commercialized space flight. Like, that's not going to be what makes a rocket company money. It's going to be government contracts. And right now, the company has received somewhere between $15 and $20 billion in funding from agencies like NASA, the Department of Defense, Space Force, and the Space Development Agency. Some of the major awards that he's gotten: Commercial Orbital Transportation Services, or COTS, in 2006. That was $278 million. I already told about the Commercial Resupply Services in 2008, which was $1.6 billion. You got the Commercial Crew Program in 2014. That was $2.6 billion to make the Dragon crew, the crew capsule. That's the one that they used to get the astronauts back, which was pretty cool. That is legitimately pretty cool. And they launched a shit ton of national security payloads, for the government. Hundreds of millions of dollars were sunk into from government contracts into Starlink related deals, FCC broadband subsidies, things like that. A lot of SpaceX's brand, rests on this idea that they pioneered, reusable rocket technology, especially with that Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy rockets. But, what is less known is that this isn't necessarily a Musk era innovation. It's, this is an idea with a decades long public sector history. Reusable launch systems were available and in use since at least 1970. The shuttle program being one of them. in the 90s, McDonnell Douglas DCX was a vertical takeoff, vertical landing test vehicle. And it worked. And it was funded by NASA and the Department of Defense. And shit, I mean, even Jeff Bezos beat him to the punch. I mean, Blue Origin, which is Jeff Bezos's aerospace company, they landed New Shepard boosters in November 2015, which was like something like 9 months earlier than Falcon 9's successful reusable rocket test. I mean, even the Soviets, they had a shuttle in 1988 that was a reusable orbital space plane. So SpaceX did innovate the designs and made it practical and repeatable and at a lower cost, which is definitely worth praising. It's not necessarily like new, right? It's just, he's. I'm trying to give him some credit on this one because I actually kind of do like SpaceX and I like the idea of it. I think, it's hard for me to say that, oh, he didn't create anything, because this is one of the companies they actually did start from the ground up. And yes, he got a shit ton of government contracts, right? And that's the reason why he has money. So, if we're saying that Tesla is Tesla because Elon gave it money, then SpaceX is SpaceX because the government gave it money. So that's just to be intellectually honest with myself. That's where I land with SpaceX.
Well, no billionaire is going to be able to fund that.
Yeah, I mean, this is fucking crazy money sink, right? Giant money pit.
I do think that going to Mars though is a big fucking pipe dream. I don't think going to Mars is a pipe dream. I think colonizing Mars is a pipe dream.
Journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step, Henry.
But you know what? You're into that.
You
should be thankful that this billionaire is fucking into that too.
Well, so here's the problem though, and I don't think that we're gonna have time today. Maybe we might have to cover this in another episode, or maybe we'll even do it on our Shoot the Shit instead. But while I admire SpaceX and Starlink for its public utility, what I am worried about is that we now have a critical defense infrastructure owned by a private citizen. So the government now depends on a single private citizen. And that's not fantastic. I'm not saying that the government could do it better or that the government should, take over SpaceX or something crazy. I'm not suggesting that. But what I am saying is that now that Musk has his influence over the Trump administration, I don't really see a whole lot of his competitors or brand new competitors popping up anytime soon, and effectively making the US government entirely reliant on a single vendor.
Well, there is lots of corruption in this sector as a whole.
For sure. But there is one thing that's not very balanced, but somewhat balanced about the defense industry, like the public-private, military industrial complex, is that traditionally speaking, the government has tried its best to spread out its contracts among a bunch of different vendors. And the reason why is because it's in the national interest of the United States not to rely too heavily on one vendor, right? So, for example, I was just reading that apparently Boeing just scored a huge contract with the United States to build the F-47. So it's going to be the new 6th generation fighter jet.
That was Boeing who won? I must have misread that. I thought Lockheed Martin won that contract.
No, Boeing won the contract.
Oh.
And a lot of people are saying that the reason why Boeing won the contract wasn't because they're particularly competent, but because the government doesn't want to award it to Lockheed Martin again, because they already have their hands on the F-22 and the F-35. They didn't want to give them a third one, so they were trying to balance that out. And so it's within the national interest not to have to only rely on Lockheed Martin for all of their, jets. Like, it's better for the government to create competition among, these private entities, because then they get the best bang for their buck, or the best bang for our buck.
Because Lockheed
frankly.
Martin has fucked up the F-35.
Well, Boeing doesn't necessarily have a very good rap right now with their regular fucking airplanes. Like, they're fucking falling out of the sky and shit. Like, and that's the consumer airplanes.
That's
like,
DEI though.
Okay,
I'm joking.
we're gonna trust the guys who made the planes where the doors fly off mid-flight to make our 6th generation stealth fighter. I don't know, man.
It's better than the helmet ripping your head off. Well, I guess both are pretty bad, right?
Yeah, they're both pretty bad. Yeah. But here's the thing though, with SpaceX. Because Musk has such close proximity and influence over the Trump administration, there's not going to be a situation where, Blue Origin starts winning a bunch of government contracts to do the same thing, because Blue Origin is also comparably equipped to handle space missions, right? And for certain, we're not going to see like fucking, I don't know, give me some super liberal billionaire. Yeah. Insert
George
super
Soros.
Liberal. Okay. George Soros is going to make fucking Soros Space Inc. Right. And like try to compete with Elon Musk, because it's just, Elon Musk has the power to regulate the regulators and be like,
well, Soros is not like a hands-on creator of business. He's just a financier.
I know. But you get what I'm saying. It's like he has now the potential, and I'm not arguing that he has, because I have no evidence of it. But what I'm saying is it is concerning, and at worst, it's a conflict of interest that he can regulate the regulators that would ultimately, be that would regulate the people who are his direct competition.
Well, that's the curse of the mixed economy.
At least in the defense spending, the government has the foresight to be like, yeah, let's give Boeing this contract for the J-47 instead of Lockheed Martin, because it's not smart to just give all of our contracts to Lockheed Martin. I just don't see that as being helpful. Do you want to do, unless you have any other things to say about SpaceX, do you want to just rapid fire a couple of his other companies and just get your quick reactions on some of them?
Sure, let's do it.
All right. Solar City. You heard of this one?
I have heard of Solar City, but I don't know much about it.
All right. So it's a residential solar panel company. It was Musk's cousin, like two of his cousins' company. They were basically going bankrupt. And in 2016, Elon Musk used Tesla's money to acquire Solar City for $2.6 billion in stock. And that obviously is paid by the shareholders. And the promise, the overarching pitch was that, we were going to get innovations like the solar roof, like Tesla was going to make solar roofs. That really didn't happen and still hasn't happened and probably won't happen. And really what this is just, his cousins financially mismanaged a solar panel company, and Musk bailed him out with Tesla shareholder money. That's really all I have to say about that one. So I'm gonna skip Twitter because we'll end on Twitter. Hyperloop. So this was proposed in 2013. It's a vacuum tube based high speed transportation system, and Musk promises to make speeds of up to 700 miles an hour between major cities. We still don't have a working prototype. Nothing has been built. Multiple independent ventures have tried and failed. And another company of his, the Boring Company, they created a Hyperloop tunnel in Hawthorne in California, or at least they tried to, and that was quietly dismantled in 2022 because it didn't work out. And pretty much all we have is just media buzz, but nothing. So that leads me into the Boring Company, and it's literally a boring company. They drill tunnels, and this is supposed to be also, again, a revolution in urban transportation, right? By making new tunnels. And pretty much the only thing they built is a short tunnel in Las Vegas. It cost them $47 million. And it only moves Teslas. It can only take Teslas in there, and they can only go 35 miles an hour. And the idea was that they were going to try and, unclog traffic at this convention center, like ground traffic. And, now in function, this thing moves fewer people than a bike lane would. They've tried to propose different city expansions, and they've either been canceled, stalled, or, basically shrunk to just demonstration projects. Then we got Neuralink. This one is another one of those that I was like kind of interested in, but like it's got some dodgy background. This is like a brain machine interface. Been super delayed. It's failed a lot of FDA approvals, although now that he has oversight over the FDA, maybe this will sail through. And then there's like a bunch of weird reports about like rushing testing and then like animals dying or being abused unnecessarily, which I mean kind of comes with the territory of like medical technology, but still don't love it. And then in 2024, they actually started human trials. There was this guy who was like a quadriplegic. It was actually pretty cool. He was like, they put a chip in his brain, and then he was able to like use a computer with his mind. And one of the first things he decided to do was play Civ 7 or Civ 6.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and apparently he was just playing.
I thought you were going to say he started looking up porn.
Oh, I'm sure he did too. I'm sure he did that too. But the story, the like nice story that you hear is that he was playing a bunch of video games because he loved that game, and he would watch a lot of videos of people playing it, but could never play it himself for obvious reasons. And it worked kind of, and then they shut it off on him, and now he doesn't have it anymore.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, dude. So a lot of people, neuroscientists here are arguing that a lot of this tech is kind of overhyped, and that a lot of independent like university labs are already working on shit like this, and they'll probably pass him. They'll probably outpace him quickly.
I mean, so that whole Neuralink thing is so creepy to me.
It is a little creepy, isn't it?
Just like it's
a chip in your brain. You'll have to see ads and shitty tweets.
I'm thinking they can just control your
body
behavior and body.
Yeah, it's possible. Mm-hmm. A little scary.
If you just have a bunch of people who have chips in their head, like they can control your thoughts. And
yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I don't think that's a good road to go down. Except maybe for like people who can't use their arms or legs and they want to play Civ 6 or Civ whatever
Civ
is out
6,
right
now.
That's nice.
Yeah, that is the nice story that you hear out of it, but like this company is plagued with, a lot of issues and some pretty shady shit. So I don't know about it.
Okay.
All right, second to last one. Go ahead.
Okay, go on. Go to the second to last one.
Yeah, second to last one, and then we'll talk about Twitter to end out the show. All right, so AI. Musk has publicly warned against the existential dangers of artificial intelligence. He said, and I quote, "We're summoning the demon." This is how he talks. It's funny. But what's funny about that is that he has founded or backed the foundation of XAI, which is his own little AI firm, and it is aiming to rival OpenAI, which itself is a company that he co-founded with money, and then sued because he wanted to buy the company, and they said no. And then he sued them for saying that they breached contract, and that I think that lawsuit is still ongoing. And so, his behavior on the matter is kind of doublespeak here. He suggests concern about AI and ethics, but he also is building his own AIs and, using them on his X platform, So there's that.
I mean, I can believe that. He just wants to control the market share.
Yep.
I think AI is a little, in some ways, I think it's a little overhyped.
I think it's super useful.
I think it's extremely useful, but I don't think AI technology, or maybe I'm completely wrong, and maybe it will replace everything that we do. But
I don't know, we'll see. I mean, I think for AI bit, and not to go too long on this one, but AI for me right now feels like a second industrial revolution. And at the time of the industrial revolution, a lot of people were like, well, am I going to lose my sewing job? And the answer was yes. People lost their sewing jobs, because industrialization took over that. A lot of people who were doing things manually suddenly got replaced by machines doing them. Now, in those cases, in the Industrial Revolution, there were still human operators of those machines, but you just needed fewer of the humans to do it. The outcome of that was, if you want to play the ends justifying the means game here, the outcome was incredibly positive, right? The Industrial Revolution created growth unseen in the history of the world, right? So if you want to look at it from that kind of a frame, the frame of the Industrial Revolution, I think AI will definitely eviscerate large swathes of jobs, for sure.
Well, it wasn't good for those sewers, though.
No, it wasn't. But like, okay,
because the people who experienced the Industrial Revolution, I mean, the first people who started working in the factories, they lived in some pretty fucking awful living conditions.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, they were
Henry, now you're making a means justify the ends argument. But when we were talking about Tesla, you were making an ends justify the means argument, right? So I'm not gonna shit on you too much. I think it's possible for you to have a nuanced opinion on things, and I actually respect your opinion on it might not be good for the people right now who have jobs.
Oh, I'm not saying the AI revolution may lead to, just complete prosperity around the world, but there's still going to be people who are replaced.
Yep.
In the case of the Industrial Revolution, you had people who were, basically pulled out of their little farming communities and thrown into factories where they were building widgets all day. And then if they there was like a 20% chance that they would lose an arm. And if they lost their arm, they would fucking literally just die.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thankfully, you're probably not going to die because an AI, as a direct result of an AI taking your job, because you just won't have the job anymore, period. Right? Right. I think what I am most concerned about is the kind of negative consequences of the Industrial Revolution was the centralization of power and capital in a very small, it basically stratified us, from an economic perspective. It made the winners very big winners, and it made a shit ton of losers. And
yeah, but also the Industrial Revolution brought the entirety of the standard of living rose across the board.
Agreed. I can't agree with you more. Right. So it's like a very nuanced. It's a very nuanced got conversation.
Super rich, but the overall standard of living among the rest of the population increased.
Yeah, I mean, my dream for AI revolution is that we basically create a society of abundance by superpowering our ability to solve problems, right? So like AI has, a lot of people know AI is like, oh, I'm going to fuck around on ChatGPT and make it, make a picture of me in Studio Ghibli, right? And that's cool, but that's not really the strength of AI. The strength of AI, in my opinion, is being able to solve very complex problems much faster than we could have ever possibly solved them. I mean, thinking about like medical application, right now AI is used to detect, cancers in medical imaging, and it does so at a higher rate of success than human eyes, and it does so thousands of times faster than we can. So I mean, think about the how much more healthy we'll be when we're able to detect things that, could potentially harm us so much faster and so much easier. Synthesizing new drugs can be, novel ways of synthesizing drugs can be used by AI. Just fucking brute force the shit out of possible combinations of amino strains, that can make us incredibly healthy. Figuring out complex problems that are plaguing systems in say energy generation, specifically around fusion energy, right? Fusion is like the golden goose of energy, where you create basically a mini star and have basically limitless energy. I mean, these things aren't like they aren't like pie in the sky ideas. The technology exists, it's just not optimized yet, and AI could potentially optimize those things. So imagine if we don't have energy problems anymore. Think about, we won't have to go to war in the Middle East anymore for oil, because we don't need oil, because we have literal suns, mini stars in a generator that create limitless energy. Like, we're talking about drill baby drill, but that'll go out the window because we won't need to, right? And a lot of like super legal system, like processing legal documents, specifically for our problem of immigration. Like, can we move through that process faster and more efficiently, so that we can get the people in that deserve to be here and deny the people that don't at a much more efficient clip, right? A lot of people are complaining about the border situation that could help there, So there's like plenty of ways that AI can be incredibly useful. It's just, we also need to find ways to use that abundance that we generate using AI to like help out the little guy. And that's where things like universal basic income, I think, become a necessity and not just like a liberal, idea.
I mean, I think the UBI argument's an interesting idea. The thing is, though, is that when I hear liberals talk about it, like when Andrew Yang was pitching UBI,
I haven't thought about Andrew Yang in a minute.
It's an interesting argument, but like, in addition to the UBI in his proposal, there was like a bunch of other things that people would be getting. Like, they would get money to donate to like a charity of their choice. Mm-hmm. They would get, it was just like all this extra stuff. And I'm like, you're kind of ruining it. Like, the UBI has it's in the name, it's a universal basic income that is meant to keep people afloat. Like, right. Everyone at a basic standard of living. It's not meant to give people like extra perks that could potentially like also undercut like industry like that. Like his version of it was like a bat. And I think he was probably the most famous proponent of it, at least in politics.
Yeah.
Kind of gave it, I feel like he gave it a bad name. It's an interesting debate, to have on it. Mm-hmm. Maybe at some point we will need it with the massive amounts of jobs that may decrease. But you don't know how the labor market's going to shake up over the following years, because I mean, there's a shortage in labor as well.
Right.
There's a shortage.
It'll create new jobs. Yeah.
There's a shortage,
different jobs.
But I'm talking about there's a shortage in like electricians and stuff and plumbers and those types of like skilled vocational work. There's a shortage in a lot of areas that AI will probably not be able to replace. So
not initially, not until we get robots that can do that are powered by the AI.
But
imagine having a plumber bot. Oh man, I would kill for one right now. I need a plumber really bad.
A plumber bot just pops out of your toilet.
I legitimately, I need to increase the shower pressure, and I can't figure out how to do it myself, and I need a good plumber, and I can't find one. It'd be awesome if I can contract a robot to do it. That'd be sick.
They don't have plumbers in Puerto Rico?
They do, but none of them fucking answer the phone. It's so annoying. Or they don't show up when they do say they're going to show up. It's fucking annoying. And I don't know if that's unique to Puerto Rico or if this is just like a homeowner thing now. So
no, man. Where I live, I call the plumber and they come at, maybe they, if they come, they say they're going to be there at 11, they'll come at 1 p.m. But they usually arrive the day that we schedule them to arrive.
Yeah, I've had so many
think
people
that's a
just
Puerto
straight
Rico
up not show up.
problem.
Yeah, I've had so many people just straight up not even show up.
Yeah, man. I think that's what we call in the States laziness.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just calling the wrong people.
I think you're saying that Puerto Rico has a lazy problem.
I'm not saying that. You are. Maybe I am saying it. I don't
You know damn well you've told me that everyone in Puerto Rico's lazy.
I wouldn't say everyone. I think that's a mischaracterization. But all of the
Every time of people are though.
every time I critically need something, I feel like I encounter some flavor of this issue. Oh.
Yeah, you were telling me that you had to get your water turned on.
Oh,
You
don't
had
even
to
get me started
hire
on
a
that.
middleman to
Yeah,
talk to the water company.
Yeah, dude, I got basically extorted. But that's a story that that's a story I don't want to talk about right now. All right, let's
Look
talk
at you,
about
man. Just
let's talk
look
about
at you.
Twitter to end this out, and then I had a shit ton more that maybe we can just roll that into a separate episode altogether, but some more history based stuff to shit on Elon with. All right, so
I'm going to compare Elon Musk to Adolf Hitler now. So, hey,
no,
Elon Musk.
No, not to Hitler. Okay, so Twitter.
Let's name this episode Elon Musk.
Okay. Just Elon Musk.
The new vessel of Nazism. National Socialist.
Hey, he was just giving his heart out to everyone, Henry.
I mean, Elon Musk, he makes his trips to the Wailing Wall.
Okay.
He makes his trips. So Twitter, X.
So I don't think we need to
say about X.
We don't really need to go into too much detail. Like, obviously, everyone knows that he paid a shit ton of money for it. So it's like $44 billion. It was mired in so many weird complications where, he said he was going to buy it, and then he tried to pull out, and then the SEC said, nope, you got to buy it now. And then he ended up buying it. And then, now it was down, like it fucking broke because he fired all the people that like run the shit, and then it broke it for like a week, and then it came back up, and now it's kind of like to your admission, Henry, became kind of a bit of a cesspool, giant rise in hate speech, giant decrease in ad revenue, almost as much as 60%. And yeah, I mean, now it's just kind of full of conspiracy memes and crypto, shit. So.
Well, there's like a positive and a negative. So the positive is that you can say whatever you want on it now, which is good. You can essentially say anything.
I've been hearing a lot about people, that are not saying nice things about Musk that are getting like fucking deplatformed and shadow banned.
If you like criticize him, then he might ban you. But like
then you can't say whatever you want.
If you say you can say anything politically,
except as long as you against him,
as long as you don't like criticize something that is like super important to him at that moment, then I think he has like a gut reaction. It's like, I'm going to show him who I boss.
Right. Well, I mean, he's kind of a hypocrite in that respect because the whole like PR reason why he wanted to buy Twitter was because he wanted to restore free speech on the platform because he thought that was important. But the actuality of it is what you had mentioned early on in the episode, that the likelihood is that he just bought this so that he can use it as an influence machine. And
I mean, that's what I think.
Yeah, I would make that argument as well. And this is part of the extra stuff that we won't have time to talk about today, but maybe we'll do in another episode. But I'm going to make the case that basically there's a historical parallel to, say, like Rupert Murdoch and how he used his media empire to shape, global politics, specifically U.S. politics. But we'll save that for another time. But that your benefit here, Henry, is a pretty weak benefit, right? The positive thing, it's bled money He had to take the company from public to private again because it was just tanking in the stock market. The thing literally broke because he fired a bunch of people. There's so many and I don't know what to believe, but there's so many reports about how shitty he is to work for, and that's also true of all of the rest of his companies too. But he's losing billions of dollars in ad revenue. This thing seems like finally the thing that he spent money on that's actually hurting him a little bit from a money perspective, but it's benefiting him from a political capital perspective.
Yeah. I think that's why I think he purchased it to influence politics. And I mean, I do respect the fact that he just opened the doors. So you can be completely wild and you can say whatever you want, which I think is important, even if it's super offensive.
Unless it's offensive to Elon.
I will get I noticed that the one thing I really dislike about it, and it's pretty random, is that sometimes random snuff films will pop up.
Yeah.
In my feed. It'll be what? Someone getting hit by a car. And I'm like, dude, I don't, and you see it and you're like, what the fuck is happening? And then you see a horrible, horrible video and you're like, holy shit. And you scroll away. But since you spent 10 seconds watching it,
it helps the algorithm promote it.
It's oh, this person's a fucked up freak and likes watching murder videos. And then it just, then there's a bunch of them that show up on your feed. And I'm like,
yep.
I don't want that on my timeline at all.
That's right.
So that's my biggest complaint. Then the other complaint is obviously how a bunch of these kind of con ink people, conservative ink people who were Elon Musk was we are the media now. And then you see someone memed all these prominent conservative ink influencers, and they had the exact same messaging. So you know how when in 2020 when COVID was rampant, you had all these liberals with the same messaging about COVID. It was I have COVID. I'm doing it's the exact same messaging. It's the same thing with the conning people. So that's that's something that I've noticed. What is really weird though, and I'll end with this story, is that since he's become a darling with the conservative movement, did you hear that he knocked up this this right-wing influencer?
Yeah, I did.
This chick, and he because he has 12 kids with 4 different women.
Yeah, 11. I could be wrong.
And I just find it so funny that he was seduced by this random right-wing e-girl. I don't know if she met him at one of these Trump events or what, but now she has his kid and she's obviously, she's set for life.
No, she's not. I heard he has nothing to do with that kid anymore, and she's suing for full custody because he's a fucking absent father.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't catch the latest.
Yeah.
I'm sure she's getting money.
Yeah, but the poor kid doesn't have a father now.
No, that's horrible, but I'm just saying that she's probably going to get a shitload of money.
Probably. Maybe he stiffs her. I don't know. No one knows. But I really don't care very much for his for criticizing Elon Musk for his sexual proclivities. I don't give a shit how many kids he has.
Yeah. I just think it's funny. The whole story to me is that the fact that he was enamored by some
right-wing e-girl.
Right-wing e-girl. It's a lot of these because you'll find like these pretty girls who get into right-wing politics. A lot of them just do it because there's a market for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Kind of like how I have I had like a hate crush on Tommy Lahren for the longest time. Like I fucking hated everything that came out of her mouth, but I thought she was really pretty. You know?
Well, there's like a big market for those women because people will naturally, prefer watching a pretty lady in many cases. And they especially like it when they validate their political opinions. So if you're, it's like an easy way to get social internet clout.
Right. If you're attractive, just like have a political opinion.
And I think this girl was like an OnlyFans model before too.
Was she?
Yeah. So
that's another job that AI will kill, right?
What?
Just fucking porn.
Those poor workers. Okay. We've been on for 2 hours at this point. I need to catch a flight.
Let's end this. And so before we do end this, I do want to make a quick fun announcement. So we've been doing a lot of really awesome work over in our Substack, and we've been releasing a lot of episodes that we call Shoot the Shit, and it is much more chill, much more relaxed, and way less sourced. It's just us talking about whatever the hell we feel like talking about. And we also cover a lot
It's way less politically correct too.
Oh yeah, totally. Which is why we have to paywall it. So in that sense, if you're interested in hearing that, you can join us on Substack, and you don't necessarily have to buy anything if you want to try it, right? You can use your free, you get a freebie from Substack to listen to a whole episode. So you can listen to, one of our more recent ones. And if you like it, you can subscribe to us. We're running a promotion, and it's going to start pretty much as soon as I decide to release this episode, where you can get access to all of our I was going to say Patreon because I'm still thinking about it. All of our Substack content for just $1 a month, so $12 a year, and it's a really good deal. We'll run it for a month. And if you want to get in on the action and help support us because you like the show, that's an awesome way to do it.
You also get the episodes ad-free.
That's right. So if you hate hearing the stupid ads, there you go. You can do that.
You can get the episodes ad-free on our Substack. Okay.
So give us money so that we can become rich like Elon Musk and take over the world. Yeah.
Yeah, and buy our own social media platform to influence elections.
Yeah, right.
In Latin America.
Imagine if Bro History was what would Bro History as a social media platform look like? I think it'd probably be a cesspool.
Probably just wouldn't work. Probably just be like a shitty app.
Yeah.
Really bad user interface. Really ugly to look at.
Yeah, maybe.
Barely anyone on it.
Yeah.
That's what I imagine it'd be. Okay. Let's peace out.
Yeah. See ya.
See ya.